What's going on, guys? We have Fiendish 2.5, and this is actually kind of letting us know more about Casimir. This is, I wouldn't really call it like a mainland story, just kind of letting us know how Casimir grew up after the events of what happened to his village and how his family was all killed and things like that. What happened between then and then when we meet him when he's a fully grown adult with Iskel and all that. We get a lot more detail, and honestly, I probably would have just called this more 1.5 as opposed to that. But hey, Irene can do whatever she wants to do. There are things in this that I guess might spoil issue 2, and maybe that's the thought process behind that. We do meet Nina for the first time in this, and how those two get acquainted, as well as how Casimir and Ragna also meet. So perhaps that is why Irene wanted to have us read this one after the second one. But let's go ahead and get started. The only thing that's really relevant is from issue 1, where Casimir's village was destroyed and his brother Stana tells him to run off. And that's really about it. That's about the only previous information we're going to need at this point. So again, Irene, Michael Rushbrook is our pencils and ink, and then our editor is Michael Oden, and I already said in issue 2 how much I appreciate that, since I really like a lot of Michael Oden's work as well. So here we have Casimir. He's just wandering through like the blizzard, and he's very weak right now. He's been wandering around. It's very cold. He's not properly bundled. Bad things are going on, and he eventually collapses down, spits out some blood, and falls, right? And then we see 2 individuals pick him up, and it looks like he's been there for at least a little bit. It is kind of like snowing, so I don't think he's been there terribly long, but he's had a little bit of time there for some snow to collect on him. He wakes up and we see Ragna's there to greet him. And these two seem to already have a connection between the two. They already, kind of like that love at first sight kind of deal. They both seem to be quite taken with one another. Suddenly, Casimir cries out in pain, and Ragnar goes ahead and finds Friggy. And so here's Friggy, and this is Octo. And Casimir is just explaining what happened to his village and all this, that, and the other. Friggy asks, is there somewhere you can go? And he explains that he's got an aunt over in Alstad that he was going to go seek out. And so Friggy's like, all right, I'll reach out to her. We flash forward a little bit, and we find that his aunt has no desire to have him over there. And this is something we did learn in the second issue as well. And because of how weak and helpless Casimir felt, he wanted to become kind of Octo's like apprentice, or whichever. And Friggy warns him like, hey, he's not going to go easy on you. It's going to be a tough life, but you will learn a lot. And so they set off. They say their goodbyes to Friggy and Ragna, and off they go. And Stana just kind of thinking about how much Octo kind of frightens him. He doesn't have like the greatest of impressions with him. But he's like, despite the fear he has of this man, he feels that this is the person to really teach him how to hunt and how to survive out on his own, since he's got nobody else to really do this for him. And then they pass by like a memorial, and this one in particular is for like a lost child. Now, I kind of wondered if this might have been like Octo's child, because he is kind of quick to cut Casimir off. Like, there's nothing to see here, let's get going. But this is kind of also his overall mentality, so I'm not really certain if this is just somebody else's child, and Octo's just like, stick to the path, don't get too distracted kind of thing. Then we get a little bit of a montage of all of the hard training that we see with Octo and how he's not taking it easy on Casimir. It's just like, okay, you're going to learn how to fight. You know, you're going to pull your own weight. It looks like supplies or a carcass of some sort being pulled here. He's chopping woods and all this, that, and the other. And there are some like connections that you see from what we've learned from Casimir, like as an adult, that he is doing very similar things to what he had to go through as well. So, like the whole thing in issue 2 where he's training Yomi and stuff like that, and not taking it easy on her either, and kind of gruff. We are seeing some connections here. And then one day Octo comes to him and says, you know, come with me. And the two don't have what I would call the healthiest of relationships, because all he really says to Casimir is, come runt. And Casimir responds with like an insult, calls him like a fatso, like, what do you need my help? You're not strong enough to haul in a carcass? He's like, nope, we got a bandit to deal with. And we see a tied up, like a hands-bound bandit, and Octo grabs him and throws him in. It's like, it's time to put you to the test. Only one of you is leaving this pit alive. Fortunately, you know, again, hands bound on the bandit, and Casimir does have an axe. That does not stop this bandit from rushing him. He does get Casimir for a quick second, but, you know, Casimir does go ahead and stab him and kill him. And Octo's not exactly the most impressed. He's just like, okay, well, it could have been a cleaner kill. You know, just already criticizing him from the start. Casimir, he's just like, why would you do that? What purpose is this? And Octo just explains, like, you wanted to learn how to fight. You also need to learn how to kill. There's no way around that. For which Casimir just screams out, I hate you. We flash forward some more, and we see Casimir's gotten a little bit older, and he finds a couple more bandits, and it looks like by this point, he's gotten more used to taking life, because Octo tells him, you know, it's either you or us. You know, it's either us or them, and Casimir's just like, yeah, I know, shut up. So he's not really hesitating with the whole killing bit anymore, so presumably, he's already had to kill more than just that one bandit in the pit before that fight. We later find them at a fire, and Casimir remarks that there's a blizzard coming in, and Octo says, we have unfinished business, more or less. And before Casimir is able to finish his retort to him, because he's like, what are you talking about? He starts feeling a little funny and then eventually blacks out. When Casimir wakes up, he finds that Octo has strapped him to a tree. He has given him a dagger, but has more or less said, okay, look, this is going to be the completion of your training one way or another. Either you're going to come find me to the south at a cabin, or find other ways of surviving, or you're going to die. Either way, your training is completed at this point. And he walks off, and, you know, Casimir is like, this isn't, you know, this isn't training. You're a psychopath. Octo's got no remark. So we see Casimir goes ahead and frees himself. He walks through the blizzard, spots a cave, and goes ahead and tries to take refuge there. He gets in there, and it's not too long before he's discovered by a Frostfang. The two have it out, and the Frostfang pins him, but Casimir stabs it in the eye, rolls it over, and finishes the job, and then goes ahead and skins it. Now he's got some meat and some nice little fur skin rug, or, coat. He goes ahead, and we see he's having some Frostfang tartar here, and another noise catches his eye. He grabs his dagger and readies himself for another battle with a Frostfang, but out walks a little cub. And Casimir is a little taken aback. He's like, why would you be approaching me? I've killed your parents. Don't you understand? And my camera's not going to show it the best, but its eyes are kind of shut. It looks to be a pretty young cub, you know, possibly only a few days old, where, you know, they can't open their eyes. And just only has its mother's scent. And this is pretty morbid and depressing. This scene in particular, where little cubs just approaching, and you got like the mother all skinned over here, just nothing but muscle, and Casimir's wearing the rest of her. Comes over and licks Casimir, and Casimir just feels so bad. He's just like, okay, I'm gonna take care of you. You know, you're my responsibility now. And so, yeah, as you may have guessed, if you've seen issue 2 review, this is Nina, his pet. He makes his way back to Octo, and, you know, he threatens him. He's like, you touch me again, I'll slit your throat. And Octo's like, you know, big talk from a guy swaddling a cub. He's like, well, I'm going to train it as my hunting partner. And Octo's like, well, don't come running to me when it mauls you. And then shortly thereafter, he coughs up blood and collapses. Casimir goes ahead and gets him inside the cabin, and Octo, everybody knows at this point, well, at least these two, they know that Octo's going to die. And before Octo parts the world, he gives Casimir some pendants and a little bit of final words of wisdom. And he's like, you know, don't spend your life alone. Find somebody, start a life with them, have children, teach these people. Let that young life be, you know, a life for you, and something to make peace. Don't end up like me. And Octo then dies. Casimir burns his body, and so now he's without his mentor. He goes out hunting with Nina, and then Nina runs off, just not being trained and whatnot, so not having any discipline. And so now Casimir is all alone. And he's pretty down in the dumps, right? He's got nobody with him. And he's thinking about giving it all up, you know, just ending himself and all that, when suddenly somebody calls out at the door. He's like, what the hell? You know, who could possibly be here? And I do have a little bit of issue with who's at the door. And we'll get to that here in a second. And it is Iskel. Iskel embraces Casimir, and of course, what we do know about Iskel is anybody who touches him is given their worst memories. And so Casimir remembers his brother Stana dying. And that's the last thing he remembers of his home is his older brother dying. And Casimir is able to kind of predict who is who's hugging him, and he's like, is this Iskel? And Iskel just explains that his mother left and he's got nowhere else to go, and he's just asking for help. For which Casimir embraces him, takes him in, and now is kind of thinking to himself, he does have a purpose. He's got something to live for. He's like, I got to keep on fighting. I got to keep on living. I got to do it for, you know, his family who's passed, and in particular, like his brother who sacrificed himself, but also for Iskel. And then at the final scene, we see Nina and Casimir reunite, and that's where the story ends. Now, the only issues I had right now, okay, I'm not entirely certain why Iskel looks like this. I'm not certain if we're trying to be shown that he's been out there in this blizzard and he's just completely covered in snow as he's been trying to reach out, or if this is like some sort of magical thing going on here. I have no idea. I know that there is a curse to Iskel that he himself cannot explain outside of this, so I don't know if this little part here is just more of this curse or what have you. Also, I don't know how he was able to track Stana there. I didn't know if maybe he made contact with Friggy and Ragna and they pointed him to that direction. I have no idea. I need a little bit more explanation as to how Iskel arrived here at the door of Casimir's. But also, in issue 2, we see Ragna and Casimir speaking her native tongue we don't see Iskel doing that, so I'm kind of wondering where all this fits. It looks like Casimir's just been out there with Octo. Maybe they're going back and forth and just doing this year over year. I can imagine that that's the case. I would have just liked to have seen a little bit more clarity as to how he is learning this language where it doesn't seem like Iskel is, because it looks like from here on, whatever Casimir is learning, Iskel should also be informed on as well. And you know, if he knows the language, then great. And he was just keeping his mouth shut because his mentor didn't tell him. So I have a little bit of stuff there that needs to kind of cleaned up and just kind of figure that out. But otherwise, I don't have too much in the way of issues here. Once again, we're given more detail as to like how the whole death process works and all this. More on other people and stuff like that. So like I said in my previous reviews, I always appreciate that kind of stuff. So I won't harp on that too much more or praise it in that regard. But yeah, this is a very solid book. I don't say I fully recommend. I enjoy the story. Don't get me wrong, but as far as mainline stuff, you can skip it if you want, but I would recommend still picking it up. But if learning more about Casimir just doesn't interest you too much, I understand that there was a little bit of pushback with issue 1. People seem not to like Casimir too much. And honestly, I would recommend this even more if you didn't like him, because then you can at least understand how he's operating. That he's just doing as he's learned. And so we saw with some of his training, he's doing the same thing. He's mimicking what he's been taught. And so I would say that should maybe give you a little bit better perspective. You see he's not so cold-hearted. We see what happens. He felt really guilty about what he did with like Nina's mom. And he cares a lot. He takes in Iskel and all this, that, and the other. He's as cold as he has to be because that's the way he's been brought up to do, to survive. So I still very much recommend this. But if this really just isn't something for you, then I can imagine you'll be okay to skip it and just stick with the main line. But that is all I have for today, guys. So until next time, take care and God bless.